Give me your heavenly name. So a few days ago, my roommates and I were heading to a coffee shop to get some midterm studying in. We stopped at a 7-Eleven to grab some cigarettes, but I stayed inside the car. I was scrolling on my phone, but I get this eerie feeling and look up to see this guy staring intently at me through the windshield. I'm sitting at the back seat. He mouths something to me, but I'm not sure what, so I just shake my head. After this, I look back at my phone trying to ignore him. After a couple minutes, one of my roommates opens the door to get back in the car when I hear the guy who was staring yell over to him, "Hey, do you know her?" My roommate replies, "Yes." And then the guy approaches the car and asks, "What's her name?" To which my generally friendly and trusting roommate responds with my name. The guy seems around my age, so I begin to wonder if maybe we went to high school together or something like that. The guy seems upset and then demands, No, her heavenly name. I know what she's a part of." The guy continues demanding what my heavenly name is, while making direct eye contact with me. He then comes around the side of the car, opens the door, and thrusts a notepad and a Sharpie pen into my hands and asks for my autograph. I'm terrified at this point. I don't want to upset him any further, so I pick up the Sharpie and begin to sign my first name. He becomes irritated and tells me that he doesn't want my birth certificate name, but my heavenly name, Lucifer. I'm sure this guy's bonkers now, so I tell him I don't know what he's talking about. He brings his voice to a whisper and tells me, "I know you're part of the Illuminati. Don't lie to me, beautiful." My roommate, the other one, has come out and seen what's been going on, approaches the guy, telling him to leave me be or they'll call the police. I hand the notebook back and the guy steps back. He asks if he can add me on Facebook, to which I slam the door, lock it, and my roommate hops in the car and we speed off. Definitely not a great encounter. Convenience store creepers. This happened to me about a week ago. I live in a small town comprised of farmers, oil workers, and a native populace. And in this small town, we have a convenience store that's part of a larger chain, found only in my country. I got a job there as a cashier last month, and started to work in this particular store. Now, I hate to be stereotypical or racist, but the native populace here, especially the men, can be really shitty, especially towards women, including myself. I will tell you now that I am a Caucasian, 18-year-old female who's around 5'6", and have ASD. So social situations, the ones I get into at least, are sometimes bizarre for both parties, since I have little idea what the proper cues and facial expressions are. However, working the register, I have to be quick, so there's little time for interactions, which suits me just fine. Now also note, finally, that I am chubby and our uniforms have dressed me modestly, so I in no way was asking for any sort of attention. It started with 3 native guys who would come in, wanting to buy booze and lottery tickets and cigarettes. Since I am of legal age in my country, I am allowed to serve them those 3, and I often do a quick check of their driver's license for ID. That's how I know their names. I'm gonna use nicknames, so there's Slim, Shorty, and Stringbean. Slim was, of course, slim and tall, taller than me at about 6'4". He had that kind of machete appearance to him. Then there was Shorty, who was just a little over my height and balding and fatter than me. And Stringbean was so skinny I was surprised he wasn't malnutritioned, and he was the oldest out of them with gray hair. I first met them 2 days into my job, and after I got them their stuff and they paid, Stringbean winked and said, "With a pretty white girl like you behind the counter, we'll have to drop by more often." I thought he was just complimenting me and I smiled. I had an elderly native neighbor who would talk to me if we were outside, and sometimes even mow the lawn for me and my mother, so I was used to the kinder ones who didn't fit the stereotype. Every day afterwards, the 3 men would come in when they saw me working, and buy either a pack of cigarettes, a lottery ticket, or booze, or all 3. After I rang them up, they'd stay in the store. As my job, I have to watch them to make sure they don't shoplift, but they just hang out near the ice cream and watch me too. I got instantly creeped out by this, but tried not to show it. I just made up excuses in my head and just went back to work. One day the trio of men stuck around longer than expected, and then one asked, "Ever had a boyfriend, girlie?" "I have a girlfriend actually," I told them, and oh lord, I shouldn't have. I'm in a long-distance relationship with her, so luckily she doesn't live in this town or anywhere nearby. The lewd things they said and asked me were just disgusting. I'll just tell you, the mildest one they asked was how we like to fuck. Lucky me, At times, I can recognize when a conversation goes sour, and this was blatantly one of them. I told them, "You have no right to ask that stuff, it's personal, and none of any of your damn business." Shorty scowled, and then said, and I remember this clearly, "Watch your mouth, or you're gonna find a dick shoved in it." That's when I lost it, and ordered them out, or I was going to call the police. I should have just called them on the friggin' spot. Since I worked alone in the store, I often had time to go into the back and do a few extra jobs as well. I went into the back on a really slow evening to organize some food shipments. However, I heard the buzzer ring and walked out. There was String Bean, Shorty, and Slim, all three holding knives. When they saw me, they charged and I closed and locked the door. Then remembered I had my cell phone behind the counter. I ended up having a bad meltdown while locked in there. The three men banging on the door and threatening sexual violence against me before they finally gave up. Once I could think straight again, I got up, entered the store, and saw they were gone. I called the police, and they came and took my statements, reviewed the footage, and luckily caught the three men. I gave their names too, and within an hour, they caught the three and charged them. They're currently awaiting trial, and I no longer work shifts alone unless it is in the afternoon. I'm just glad that the creeps were caught and justice was served instantly, because seriously, the way that they were talking that night, I probably would have been found dead. I'm thankful that I got lucky and didn't get hurt. Updates. Thanks for the support, you guys. I'm actually going through some therapy right now, as I have developed some bad anxiety from this whole experience. Now, I'm still working at the store, and really nothing aside from some rude 14-year-olds that's happened to me. However, I learned that String Bean, Shorty, and Slim were registered sex offenders recently. They pulled us in another town, further northeast, and actually ended up assaulting the poor girl involved. I'm not going to say any other details, on the grounds that I'll reveal where I live, and I would much rather stay anonymous. Again, I was very lucky that night to not end up like she did. And yes, they did have the intent to kill me. They were high on drugs and drunk at the time of this, which just makes things even worse, to be honest. It also puts them away in jail for a very, very long time. Thankfully. A nightcap. Since my sister encouraged me to share more of my sinister experiences, I just thought that I would. As I've mentioned before, I visited my dad in Washington State when I was about 17 years old. He was doing some work out there, and I was fresh out of school, so I went to stay for a month or so. I thought that we would be doing all kinds of touristy things, like checking out the Space Needle or taking a hike up Mount Rainier. I never got to do any of those things though. Apparently, all my dad wanted to do was some company in the hotel room when he was home. He worked all day, and a few hours after he got home, he would just go to sleep. Understandably, after a while I got bored. He started leaving me money in the morning before work, encouraging me to go out and see the city. Now, I am a pretty shy person, so I definitely wasn't keen on getting out in a new city on my own. I was too scared to take the bus or anything for fear of getting lost. There are no smartphones, so it's not like I could have used GPS to figure it out myself either. Eventually, though, I made my way out of the hotel. I walked down to the first store I could find. It was an A&W connected to a convenience store. I went inside and just got a drink. On the way out, I noticed just how unkempt folk were hanging around the store. Most of them had a pretty disheveled appearance, with torn clothes and a bunch of scabs on their face and arms. I just assumed they were homeless. While I was making my way towards the end of the lot, I thought it might be a good idea to ask one of these folks if they knew where I could go get some bud. It probably wasn't my best moment, but I was pretty desperate in a new place with no smoke. The guy I talked to had crooked teeth, crooked grin, with a mouthful of cracked and missing teeth. He looked much cleaner than the rest, though, and seemed to be very eager to help me. We talked for a little bit, and his eagerness started to make me feel nervous. Initially, I just wanted something small, but asking for anything made him think I had any type of money. This idea of money got him very, very excited. It didn't take me long to realize he wanted a win-win situation where he would score me some weed, and I would buy him some crack. Huh. No thanks. Even though I refused with a little tact, these people can be pretty unpredictable. His demeanor did a complete U-turn. The eagerness and excitement were gone, replaced with nothing but anger and probably hate. The way he looked at me was like he wanted me dead, right there on the spot. I guess I let him on a bit about the drugs. Unintentionally, of course, but still, I let him on, right? So what, it's supposed to be my fault now? Anyways, I just kind of backed away from him until I was far enough away to turn around and walked a bit faster back than I did on my way there. It was a complete waste of my time. I wasn't able to score and sort of got harassed by a local bum. I know, right? Great trip. I didn't want to give up though, and decided after my dad got home and went to bed, I myself would just go out and see if I could get some beer. My dad is never one to stay up late. He works really early in the morning, and most of the time, he is in bed before 8 p.m. This night wasn't any different. By 8:30, he was completely out of it. So I grabbed his laptop and looked for the closest grocery store. I really didn't want to go back to that A&W and convenience store place. I really did not. Eventually, I saw that there was a Safeway, maybe 6 blocks away from the hotel. Great. I grabbed my phone and a $20 bill, so I had some cash for beer. I was planning to play Hey Mister in front of the store until someone took the baits and bought the beer for me, you know? It wasn't really a long walk, but it was dark. Washington was a lot more, hilly than I'm used to coming from the beach. So, you couldn't really see too far ahead unless you were walking downhill. While I walked, I thought it was strange that not too many other people were outside. I'm not sure what day of the week it was, since I was more or less bumming it. Still, it almost felt like a ghost town. I got to the Safeway and walked up into the lots. It was situated right next to a pretty big hill with a steep incline. On the side of the building was a flight of concrete steps leading up into the second floor. Directly across from the stairs and up the hill were some sparse woods that had a path straight through. You could tell people used it often as a shortcut to the store. The parking lot was dimly lit. It had plenty lights, but the bulbs were more or less yellow, so it cast an eerie glow on the asphalt. Since it wasn't too late, I really thought nothing of it and began to look for someone close by, about to go inside. It didn't take me long before I spotted a guy outside, hanging over near the stairs on the side of the building. Before I could even decide whether or not I wanted to ask him anything, he waved me over. I thought I might as well. I haven't really seen too many people out, and I really didn't want to go home empty-handed again with nothing. So I walked over to this guy and see that he's the same type of character in which I had met earlier in the day. My dad did warn me that certain parts of Washington are prone to tons of hardcore drug users like crack and heroin, but I didn't think he knew what he was talking about. This guy smelled pretty bad, to be honest. He had about 6 square yellow teeth that I could see and was wearing clothes 3 sizes too big. His eyes were strange. One was bigger than the other, like it was popping out of a skull a little bit. It creeped me out, but I tried to not let him see. He made me nervous. His hair was really long, unkempt, and stringy. It just felt limp across his face and down his chin, all soggy and matted. He asked me for a cigarette, which I didn't have on me. His voice sounded like it was a struggle to talk. It was raspy and had a sort of inflected wheeze to it. The voice shook me more than his eye. I told him that we might be able to help each other if he would do me a favor and get me a 6-pack. So I offered to buy him some smokes if he got me the beer. He shrugged and held out his hand, so I assumed that meant yes. I gave him my $20 and watched him walk into the store. Now, since I was underage, I thought it was a good idea to hang out on the stairs around the side of the building. That way, no one saw him bring me the goods at all. Now, I probably sat on those steps for a good 20 minutes or so before I saw him staggering back. He handed me the beer and $3. I was pissed. Not that I knew how much it cost, but I knew it wasn't $17 for a pack of smokes and a 6-pack. I told him I didn't think it cost that much, and he just stared at me with that big fucking eye, a nasty grimace on his face. I just sort of rolled my eyes and grabbed my beer, trying to walk away. I got maybe a few feet before I heard this really weird noise. It sounded like a grunt, but repetitive, like someone was coughing almost but not trying to be heard. It had a sort of short, raspy wheeze to it, like really quick breaths. I would almost call it hyperventilating. At first, I thought maybe something was wrong with the guy, so I turned around and just saw him smiling. He wasn't hurt. He wasn't in trouble. He was fucking laughing. It wasn't like any laugh I'd ever heard in my whole entire life. And it sent chills down my spine. He wasn't just laughing. He was cackling like a raspy, wheezing donkey, and it creeped me the fuck out. Now, I had this bright idea. My hotel was only a few blocks away, and those woods had a pretty quick shortcuts. I really didn't want to be walking back alone on the street where this guy could see me, or where I could get caught with the beer that I had. I just wanted to get home and drink and get drunk. I thought that path through the woods and how I could easily reach it from the steps if I just walked past that nutcase around the side. He was still sitting a foot or two away from the stairs when I started to climb. He didn't turn the corner or even look at me, so I calmed down a little bit. When I got to the top, I could see it was a good hop across the gap between the hill and the stairs. At that moment, I just thought to myself, oh, this bum could never make this jump the way I saw him stumbling earlier, so I thought I was good to go. I jumped over to the path and started to make my way into the woods. Now, when I said the woods were sparse, it was from what I could see on the outside of it, not from the inside. Once I was about 5 minutes or so down the path, the brush became much thicker and a little harder to navigate. The foliage had grown over the path in certain places, so you couldn't see it unless you knew it was there. I was trying my hardest to follow the dirt spots that shone through the leaves with a light on my phone. Now, after walking a little more, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It's normal when you're like always paranoid like me, especially also walking alone at night in the woods or not. It's just one of those things that makes you nervous. This was different though. My entire body went rigid. I started getting goosebump waves, kind of like hot flashes, I guess. But it's like an immediate rush of goosebumps all over your entire body. It goes as quick as it comes, but it just keeps happening. Then I heard it. Swish, swish, swish. I couldn't see anything more than a few feet in front of me, even with a crappy light on my phone. It sounded like something was shifting through the dirt, somewhere behind me. It didn't sound like footsteps or anything like that. It sounded like something was being dragged across the dirt really slow. I stopped right there and just listened for who knows how long. My entire body was frozen, trying to listen through the sounds of the night for something unnatural in the dark. It stopped, and I eventually shrugged it off as just wood noises, I guess. Maybe an animal. Maybe just leaves falling off of trees. Maybe just the wind. I don't know. And I just kept walking. Then, about 3 to 4 minutes later, I heard it again. Swish, swish, swish. This time it was definitely closer. It was behind me and to my right side a little bit. Like I could look over my right shoulder and be staring in the assumed direction of the noise. Now this time, I was sure there was someone or something there. Even if it was just a loose branch or something dragging in the ground, I wanted some peace. I turned around and called out, just a typical, hello? I only did it to try to ease my mind a little bit. You know, you call out, the noises stop and no one answers, so you can write it off as just nothing, just your imagination, right? But this time, something did answer, and it still gives me nightmares when I think about it. Even when I'm writing this, I'm trying not to shake. My hair is already standing up on end just thinking about what in the world I heard that night. At first, I couldn't be sure of what I was hearing. It started a little light whisper, just barely audible to the ear. And then it got louder and louder. But as it grew louder, I was certain about what it was. I recognized it immediately. I will always recognize it. That laugh. That fucking laugh. That grunting, rasping, wheezing cackle. Even though I could not see him, I knew who he was. And I didn't want to find out why in the world he was there. That was enough to send me into full panic mode. In a tenth of a second, my flight or fight response kicked in. I dropped my beer right there and then and booked it out of there. I must have been closer to the other side of the path than I thought, because in just a few minutes or so, I tore through the opening and down a second flight of stairs towards the street area. I didn't look up. I didn't look behind me, and I, for God, of course, did not stop. I ran and I ran. I ran until I got back to my hotel and locked myself in the bathroom with all the lights on. I did not even want to be in a room with windows. I fell asleep in there, and eventually, when my dad woke me up, I just told him I just wanted to go home. He put me on a plane a few days later, and to be honest, I couldn't have been happier to go home. I don't know if both those men knew one another and they planned that all out, or if it was just another bad place, or a bad time scenario. Either way, I just want to say, creepy bum in the woods, I don't know what more you wanted, and I'm glad. I never found out